The protagonist of the story, Wim Abel, was chosen as a court magician as recognition for his merits in helping solve the empire's crisis. However, despite being hailed as a hero, he was imprisoned for defying the emperor. Wim was stripped of all his power and his qualification as a court magician was permanently revoked. It was explained to Wim that the previous emperor sentenced him to prison for possessing a power that could shake the entire country. Hearing his sentence, Wim was still in total disbelief. After being locked inside a cave, he was told that his magic power was sealed. Pleading to the guard that his sentence was ridiculous, Wim wondered if everything he had achieved in his life would end up inside his cell. Wim's only wish was to change the unreasonable world they were living in. More than 10 years ago, Wim had a friend named Anna. Anna would always heal Wim from his injuries and was admired by Wim for it. However, when Anna turned 9, she was killed by a human trafficking organization. After witnessing Anna's death, Wim vowed to become a magician of justice and turn their world into one where there's no sadness and no one would get hurt. Back in his prison, Wim had no plans to die inside and inspected his cell in handcuffs for a way to escape. Realizing that his imprisonment was planned properly, Wim used the only option he had left to escape his shackles. Wim let the mana in his body run wild to forcibly break his chains. Pleased that his plan worked and now free from the handcuffs, Wim then wondered how he could get out of his prison. After casting a fireball on the prison door, Wim wondered if the door was protected by an ancient barrier since there was no change after hitting it with his spell. Suddenly, Wim heard a voice asking him if he desired power. Wim thought about the power that was being offered to him, but he knew that such an offer comes with a serious price. Deciding to accept the offer, Wim was surprised at how thick the mana was that it could make someone not used to mana faint. Wondering if the place was an S-rank dungeon, Wim was cautious since he knew that places with high concentrations of mana usually have strong monsters. As Wim moved deeper into the dungeon, he exterminated the monsters one by one and escaped the traps that were laid inside. After arriving at the deepest part of the dungeon, Wim wondered if there was a dungeon boss, when mana and smoke suddenly emerged at the location. Wim did not expect for the dungeon boss to be a black dragon. The only recorded information Wim knew of the black dragon was that it is impossible to take down without multiple high-ranking adventurers. When the black dragon shot out a beam from its mouth, Wim immediately cast a physical barrier to protect himself from the attack. However, since the attack was so powerful, Wim's barrier was destroyed. As the black dragon was being covered by a thick gust, Wim used it as an opportunity to launch a sneak attack behind the black dragon. After successfully landing an attack, Wim was determined to defeat the dragon. After casting the spell Holy Lance, Wim did not expect to defeat the black dragon so easily. Wondering if he had cleared the dungeon, Wim heard the voice again. After defeating the black dragon, Wim requested the power that was being offered to him. When Wim was bestowed with the power of immortality, he became annoyed since what he needed was the power to get out of his prison. Immortality is a power that halts the aging process, and even fatal injuries would be instantly healed. Immortality is also a special skill that cannot be removed. While searching for the dungeon's exit, Wim encountered multiple magical beasts and easily defeated them. Even though Wim would not die from hunger, he still felt hungry and wanted to eat. Wim reached the point of eating the monsters, which he found repulsive. Placing himself inside a barrier, Wim was safe from any attacks. However, he still could not sleep. No matter how long he searched for a way out, Wim did not see any sign of an exit. Wim was left with the only exit he knew, which was the impenetrable door. Seeing that the ancient barrier was still intact and that the handcuffs he broke were still unchanged, Wim guessed that there was no need to keep his guard up. Curious about what he did, Wim cast a spell out of anger. Unlike the last time he cast a spell at the door, Wim noticed a crack in the door. Seeing that the barrier had also weakened, Wim regained his hope. After casting another powerful flame spell, the ancient barrier finally broke down. Excited to finally get out of the dungeon, Wim felt a little exhilarated. Wondering what his next step would be, Wim contemplated whether he should head to the kingdom of Leoria first. Wim had heard that the kingdom operated under a complete meritocracy, which gave him an advantage since he no longer planned to return to the Cyrus Empire. Keeping his promise to become a magician of justice, Wim cast a flight spell and immediately headed to the kingdom of Leoria. While flying in the sky, Wim spotted a carriage being attacked by bandits. Seeing an arrow about to hit a princess inside the carriage, Wim hastily flew towards the princess. Landing beside the carriage, Wim saved everyone from the incoming arrows by casting a barrier around them. After locating the enemies using magic, Wim decided to end the battle in one go. Placing a magic circle above the enemies' heads, Wim then cast a spell and instantly stunned all of them. After successfully subduing the enemies, Wim immediately tended to the injured and healed them of their injuries. The guard was surprised that Wim could also use recovery magic. When asked about his identity, Wim did not want to say anything since he was branded as a fugitive by the Cyrus Empire. The princess came out of the carriage and scolded the guard for being impolite. After lecturing the guard, the princess introduced herself as Elin Leoria, the first princess of the Kingdom of Leoria. After Elin expressed her gratitude towards Wim, a man then came out of the carriage, introduced himself as Geoffrey the butler, and also expressed his gratitude towards Wim. Elin asked for Wim's name so that he could receive a reward in the Kingdom of Leoria. When Wim introduced himself, he was about to decline the reward when Elin held his hand and insisted on giving Wim the reward for saving her life. When Elin asked Wim if he could follow them to the Kingdom of Leoria, Wim agreed since he had already decided to go there. Elin was ecstatic when Wim accepted her request, and planned to introduce Wim to her father, the King of Leoria. After entering the royal capital, Wim was amazed at how nice their country was. Promising to continue their conversation once they arrived at the royal palace, Wim was speechless after seeing how huge the palace was, incomparable to the Cyrus Empire. Seeing Wim's expression, Elin asked if there was something wrong. In response, Wim mentioned that he gets a little nervous when it comes to meeting the king. Reminded of a question she was meaning to ask Wim, Elin wanted to know the reason why Wim was heading to Leoria. Before Wim could answer, Elin shared how she had only heard bad rumors about the Cyrus Empire ever since the new emperor took power. Believing Wim without any basis other than his word, Elin reassured him that he would not be put in such an absurd ordeal in the Kingdom of Leoria. Elin then offered her hand, and welcomed Wim to the Kingdom of Leoria. Surprised by the presence of someone else, Wim was thanked by a man who donned a cloak with fur on its shoulder. The man was the King of Leoria. To prepare a reward as a token of gratitude, the king wanted to know what Wim desired. Wim was in total disbelief that the king would gladly offer him a noble title, a house, money, or qualifications. Wim is seated alongside the king and Elin. The king once again expressed his gratitude towards Wim for saving his daughter. When Wim responded that it was fine, Elin smiled and told Wim that there was no need for him to be humble. The king introduced himself as Eldoret Leoria, the ruler of the country Leoria. When Elin praised Wim to the king, Elin became annoyed when Wim kept belittling himself. Elin dramatically shared how Wim saved them from the bandits and even called Wim the magician of justice Sambal. Hearing Elin's story, King Eldoret found it very similar to the return of the heretic sage. The king and Elin were confused and surprised when Wim suddenly asked how they knew his master. The heretic sage, Sambal, was said to be a legendary magician. Leoria used to have a lot of problems, but when Sambal showed up in the kingdom, he ignored social norms and did his best to help other people. The heretic sage used his powers for the sake of protecting the people. He was praised for being the magician of justice by the citizens of Leoria. King Eldoret shared that he had only heard rumors that the heretic sage had a disciple, but upon learning that the said disciple saved his daughter, King Eldoret thought that it might be fate that led them to each other. Hearing the praises for his master, Wim heard only that his master had passed away. However, he did not expect that his master would do such a gallant act. Knowing that they could not reward the heretic sage enough, King Eldoret asked Wim to say whatever he wanted as he would grant it. When Wim again declined the offer, King Eldoret took a liking to Wim for being modest. However, as the king of the country, it was unacceptable to do nothing. After asking Wim again what they could offer him, Wim thought for a while. When Wim finally realized what he needed, he asked if he could get a license to become an adventurer since he couldn't use his ID from the Cyrus Empire. Hearing how simple Wim's request was, King Eldoret wanted to give him a title. However, Wim again declined the offer. King Eldoret liked Wim even more for choosing a challenging path. Since the process for his license would take until morning, King Eldoret offered Wim to stay for the night. After presenting his sleeping quarters, Wim was amazed at how fancy the room was. Lying on his bed, Wim reminisced about how he met his master. During Anna's burial, Sambal asked Wim why he was carrying a depressed look. After expressing to Sambal his wish to become and change the world, Sambal told Wim that if strength is what he desired, Wim would have to become his disciple. For the helpless Wim, Sambal vowed to make him stronger. Morning came, and Wim finally woke up. He was then greeted by Geoffrey, who informed him that his adventure certification had been prepared. Guiding Wim to the throne room, Geoffrey shared that the issuance of adventurer certification was usually entrusted to guilds. However, for Wim's request, King Eldoret wanted to award it himself. Wim was curious why they would go to such lengths when the reception room they used yesterday would suffice. Geoffrey responded to Wim that it was unprecedented. After asking Wim how his etiquette was when it comes to an audience with royalty, Wim responded that he would be fine since he was in the Empire before. Upon entering the throne room, Wim was greeted by the royal family and other nobles. Walking towards King Eldoret, Wim bent a knee and bowed his head. Conducting the awarding of Wim's adventurer certification, King Eldoret asked Wim to raise his head. For the distinguished act of rescuing Princess Ellen from bandits, King Eldoret designated Wim as an S-rank adventurer. Hearing how the nobles praised him, Wim stared at the king as he could not believe that he was bestowed with the highest rank. As proof of his top rank, King Eldoret assigned Wim a second name. Wim was then bestowed the name Magician of the Abyss, to which he humbly accepted. Meanwhile, at the Cyrus Empire, the emperor was informed of Wim's escape from the dungeon. They received a report from the chief court magician that the barrier had been broken. Surprised by the news, the emperor became worried since Wim was now free. Taking into consideration the feat of rebellion by the young magicians aspiring to be like Wim, the king decided to imprison him. With the unexpected escape, the king of the Cyrus Empire ordered the death penalty for Wim. Giving a decree to investigate Wim's whereabouts and to arrest him dead or alive, the king's soldier accepted his command. In the hallway, the soldier smiled upon learning that Wim had started moving. He knew that Wim was headed for the Leoria kingdom, considering the location of the dungeon. During the year that Wim was held in prison, the soldier had faith that Wim would return. He was certain that if it was Wim, then fixing their rotten world would be successful. Inside the slave agency, the ladies were discussing how Wim saved the king's daughter and became an S-rank adventurer. Hoping that Wim would purchase them, another slave, who was covered in injuries, held a different opinion towards people who buy slaves. Arriving at the residence provided by the king, Wim could not believe that he would now be living in such an enormous house. Upon entering, Wim was greeted by his butler James and his maid Aria. They informed Wim that they would be in charge of taking care of his everyday needs. James mentioned that Wim's meal had already been prepared and offered to guide him. Wim still couldn't believe that he would actually live an upper-class life, something he had never dreamed of. In the dining room, Wim wondered if it was appropriate for him to eat all the food on the table. James reassured him that it was, as the meal was prepared solely for Wim. Grateful for the food, Wim decided not to hold back and immediately began to eat. He expressed his surprise at the deliciousness of the food, mentioning that it was his first time eating something so tasty. James was glad that Wim enjoyed what they had prepared. After enjoying a cup of coffee, Wim mentioned that he was looking for a teammate. In response, James offered to provide Wim with a map and asked if he planned to visit a guild or the slave merchant. When Wim expressed curiosity about slaves, James explained that he had an acquaintance who could introduce Wim to the process of obtaining a slave, should he choose that option. Wim considered it but was wary of potential dangers, particularly illegal organizations and black market slave traders, such as those who had kidnapped and killed his friend. Hoping to gather clues about the organization that killed his friend, Wim decided to visit the slave market after stopping by the guild. At the Adventurers Guild, the guildmaster Hamlet thanked Wim for meeting with him. Before handing over Wim's guild ID, Hamlet informed him that there were no S-rank missions available. Hamlet emphasized the importance of the guild ID for confirming Wim's identity in case of emergencies. While browsing the mission board, Wim noticed that he had become the subject of gossip. Feeling embarrassed, Wim quickly left the Adventurers Guild and headed to the slave market. Arriving at the slave market recommended by James, Wim wondered if he could find a teammate in such a place. Entering the beast room, the slave handler suggested to Wim that he consider taking a beastkin with excellent combat abilities if he was seeking an adventurer companion. After being presented with a group of beautiful ladies, Wim inquired if there were more options available as he was looking for something different. The slave handler responded that they did have another option but did not recommend it to Wim. Despite the warning, Wim insisted on seeing what else the slave handler had to offer. The slave handler explained that they operated under government permission, but often felt like they were doing charity work since the slaves they obtained often had injuries, incurable diseases, and some were even cursed. They disclosed to Wim that the slave they were about to introduce was in such a dire situation. Upon seeing the beastkin up close, Wim was immediately reminded of Anna, his childhood friend. He explained to the beastkin that she resembled his dear friend. The slave handler revealed that the beastkin was infected with a potent poison and had little time left. Despite the risk, Wim decided to take the beastkin into his care, intending to neutralize the poison. The slave handler was surprised by Wim's decision to take in a poisoned slave. Wim explained his plan to neutralize the poison, and they proceeded to sign the necessary papers and move forward with the contract ceremony. However, the beastkin suddenly started having a fit, but Wim easily calmed her down by using a purification spell to remove the poison from her body. The slave handler was in disbelief after witnessing Wim remove the poison from the slave. After expressing gratitude, the beastkin was surprised when Wim asked her to work together as his companion. Using his appraisal skill on the beastkin, Wim discovered that she had been afflicted with the poison dragon curse. He was even more astonished to learn that the beastkin was actually a princess of a fallen country. Wim informed Hana that the poison dragon's curse had been lifted and asked her if she was feeling much better now. After confirming her improved condition, Wim felt relieved while the others celebrated Hana's recovery. Despite receiving praise, he calmed everyone down, stating that what he did was only natural. Observing Wim closely, Hana regarded him as a kind person since he treated her normally. However, she still harbored doubts that Wim might be lying and that she would be treated poorly again. 10 years ago, before the fall of the Beastkin country, all young beastkins were rounded up by invaders to be sold at a high price. Since becoming a slave, Hana had only experienced suffering. When she was inflicted with the poison dragon curse, her teammates deemed her useless and discarded her. When Wim suddenly appeared before her, Hana knew that good and convenient things do not come for free. Even after being healed by Wim, she still wondered if he could be trusted. However, when the slave handler requested for Wim to heal the other children as well, Hana was surprised when Wim accepted the request. Realizing that he hadn't asked for her name yet, Wim introduced himself, prompting Hana to remain silent for a moment. Although she didn't know Wim, she could sense from his words that he was sincere, which made her want to believe that it was real. Hana reached out to shake Wim's hand and introduced herself as Hana Sharon. Unsure if it was due to her dire situation, she found Wim's warm hands very comforting. As they continued with the contract ceremony, Wim and Hana were asked to step into the circle. Following instructions from the slave market staff, Wim dropped his blood on Hana's neck, triggering a symbol. After completing the ceremony, Wim told the slave market that they could let him know if they needed anything from him. With bright smiles on their faces, Wim and Hana exited the slave market and headed back home. When Wim finally returned home with Hana, they were greeted by James and Arya. Wim thanked James for introducing him to the slave market, as he had finally found a teammate. After Hana introduced herself to James and Arya, Wim then asked James to prepare a room for Hana. When Arya offered to show them around the house, Hana became nervous. Noticing Hana's behavior, Wim gently grabbed her shoulder, which calmed her down, and she then followed Arya. After some time, Hana called Wim's attention, to which he responded by asking Hana her opinion about her room. Delighted, Hana expressed her happiness with the room. After asking Hana to sit down, Wim told her that he would need her help for his work. Hana's main task would be fighting monsters, so Wim asked her what type of weapons she was good at. When Hana responded that she was confident with a one-handed sword, Wim was relieved and assigned her to the vanguard. As they were about to shop for a weapon for Hana, Wim noticed that she had barely any clothing on, and decided that they should also buy clothes for her. Surprised, Hana asked Wim if he was sure about buying her clothes. Wim thought it would be proper since they would be working together moving forward. Hana was surprised when Wim shared that he would rather have her on equal footing with him. Grateful for Wim's kindness, James overheard their conversation and immediately offered Wim a place where they could go shopping. After selecting her weapon and buying new clothes, Hana apologized for having Wim carry her items. Wim did not mind as he believed that it was a man's duty to carry objects. Hana smiled, expressing how nice it was to be treated so kindly. She was glad that she had met Wim, otherwise she might have only known how cold the world was and ended up dying from the poison. As Hana expressed her gratitude for being picked up, Wim smiled and responded that he was the one who should be more thankful. Later that night, Wim stared at the stars while asking his old friend if he could really be a magician of justice. Wim was then interrupted by James, who gave him a letter from the king. Upon learning that the king needed advice on an urgent matter and was asking him to visit the royal palace the next day, Wim wondered what advice the king needed from him. Upon learning the news that Wim had gone to the Leoria kingdom and become an S-rank adventurer, the emperor was in total disbelief, considering it hadn't been long since Wim emerged from the dungeon. When asked by the duke what the next move should be, the king of the Cyrus Empire initially contemplated imprisoning Wim, viewing him as a threat to his throne. However, the situation had escalated to a much worse scenario where the Leoria kingdom might possibly wage war against them. Wondering about his next move, the king simply ordered to refrain from taking any action for the time being and wait for any new available information. After receiving the king's orders, the duke maintained his calm expression, though surprised that the king only ordered to wait. When Wim was still inside the dungeon, the duke left it unattended and neglected any maintenance on the barrier, allowing Wim to escape. The duke hadn't expected his plan to proceed so smoothly, which gave him some peace of mind. He then pondered what Wim would do next. At the royal palace, King Eldoret apologized to Wim for calling him over. Upon meeting Hana, the king introduced himself and advised her not to be so stiff, expressing his anticipation in meeting her. Hearing the king's words, Hana calmed down and thanked him for his kindness. Wim was impressed by the king's demeanor, acting without consideration of one's status. The king didn't want to prolong his intentions. He informed Wim that he was summoned because there was a request specifically for him. The king explained that the Third Night Order was currently struggling to suppress monsters in the eastern forest, which prompted his wish to send Wim as support. Wim was surprised to learn of a monster formidable enough to challenge the elite Night Order. Upon hearing that the surrounding area had also suffered damage, the king asked Wim if he would accept his request. Without hesitation, Wim accepted. Grateful towards Wim, King Eldoret handed him a card, explaining that it would allow them to bypass any inspections or troublesome procedures in the country and serve as a testimony that the royal family supported Wim. In addition to accepting the request, King Eldoret considered having Hana register as an adventurer. Hana was surprised, thinking that slaves were prohibited from registering as adventurers by the government. King Eldoret confirmed this but opposed such regulations, already having people with common interests calling for their abolition, favoring performance-based criteria for becoming an adventurer. King Eldoret deemed Hana's case as special and intended to use it to steer opinions towards abolishing the regulations. For their plan to succeed, they needed to recognize true power and ask Wim to complete the mission. After accepting King Eldoret's request, Wim and Hana immediately departed. Inside the carriage, Hana expressed her admiration for the king's efforts to give her a chance at becoming an adventurer. Agreeing with Hana, Wim hoped that the king would also abolish slavery someday, considering it necessary to prevent situations like Anna's death, caused by the exploitation of slaves for profit, as the carriage driver informed them that it would take a day and a half to reach the closest town to the eastern forest. Wim thanked the driver for the information. Curious about the current situation in the eastern forest, Wim used his magic to observe their status, not expecting to witness a person being attacked by a dragon. Upon realizing the gravity of the situation, Wim disembarked from the carriage and immediately made his way to the eastern forest. Meanwhile, in the eastern forest, a female soldier found herself confronting a dragon alone. When she attempted to harm the dragon, her sword failed to inflict any damage upon striking it. Subsequently, the soldier was hurled away by the gust of wind generated by the dragon's wings. Lying on the ground, she pondered if her demise was imminent. As the dragon prepared to attack the soldier, Wim fortuitously arrived just in time, creating a barrier to shield her from harm. Wim promptly signaled for Hana to join him, and she promptly appeared, landing an attack on the dragon's back. As the dragon ascended into the sky, Wim launched fire bullets towards it, providing enough distraction for Hana to position herself amidst the flames and deliver a fatal slash to the dragon's neck, successfully slaying it. The soldier was astonished by the excellent coordination between Wim and Hana. After tending to the soldier's injuries, she was impressed that Wim possessed the ability to cast restoration magic. The soldier introduced herself as Misa Flamen, a knight from the Imperial Guards of Cyrus. Grateful for being rescued from the dragon, Misa wished to express her gratitude in some manner. Upon discovering that Misa hailed from the Cyrus Empire, Wim realized it might not be wise to become too involved. Recognizing the pride associated with being a knight, Wim saw an opportunity to have a knight indebted to him. He introduced himself and informed Misa that if he ever found himself in a tight spot in the future, he would like to rely on her strength. Misa accepted Wim's request, pledging to come to his aid whenever needed. After Wim departed, Misa recalled hearing the Duke mention Wim's name. It dawned on her who Wim was, and she was overjoyed to realize she was indebted to such an extraordinary person. Arriving at the guild branch in the town of Berlin, Wim requested to see the guild branch master through the receptionist. After presenting the cards provided by the king, the receptionist informed Wim and Hana that they were expected, then guided them to the guild branch master's office. Upon entering, Wim and Hana were greeted by Camilla, the master of Berlin's guild branch. After taking their seats, Wim was informed of the current situation in the East Forest. He learned that the Night Order was not only being pushed back, but the monsters were not subsiding due to high-ranking monsters reappearing incessantly. Additionally, there were many new adventurers entering the forest, making the situation more challenging. Having grasped the situation, Wim promised the guild branch master that he would do his best to help. He immediately headed to the East Forest, instructing Hana to stay alert. Although he warned Hana to stay vigilant, Wim remained anxious as he sensed an unusual concentration of mana. Wondering about the cause, he was surprised to find the Night Order battling a huge monster. Suspecting the monster might be the source of the dense mana, Wim asked the knights if they were alright, despite their warnings about the danger. Ignoring their caution, Wim and Hana charged at the huge monster. Hana attempted to attack but was thrown off by the monster, prompting Wim to catch her as she lost her balance. Taking advantage of the situation, Wim cast the spell Explosion at the monster, successfully defeating it. After the chaos subsided, Wim immediately healed the injured knights using a wide-range healing magic. One of the knights, grateful for their assistance, asked if they were sent by the king. Expressing gratitude for defeating the monster and healing their injuries, the knight introduced himself as the vice leader of the Third Night Order. At the Berlin's guild branch, Wim, along with the adventurers in the Third Night Order, celebrated the successful subjugation of the monsters in the East Forest. While enjoying the celebration, an old man visited the guild branch in search of Wim. Upon meeting him, the old man introduced himself as Count Dion Berlin. Apologizing for his late introduction, Count Berlin praised Wim's commendable performance. As Wim continued to enjoy the banquet, Camilla expressed amazement at how quickly the request had been completed. After humbly responding to Camilla, Wim observed the people around and noticed that the kingdom was headed in the right direction, treating people fairly. The kingdom of Leoria was different from the Cyrus Empire, which disposed of any powerful person. It was because of that difference that the kingdom of Leoria became a truly wonderful country. As they were about to head back, Hana shared how fun the banquet was. Wim agreed, as he also found the food very delicious. Hoping that nothing would happen on their way home, Wim noticed that the area was unusually quiet. Thinking that the area felt devoid of life, Wim wondered if it was due to a clearing barrier. Suddenly, the carriage stopped, prompting Wim to investigate. He then saw that their road was blocked by a group of men. A man with glasses was surprised that Wim and the others were still conscious, as he was sure that there was a clearing barrier in place. Wim explained that the clearing barrier they had set up was nullified by his skills alone. When Wim asked them to move aside and get out of their way, the man in glasses revealed that they had no plans to let everyone go since Wim and the others had already seen their faces. As the man with glasses ordered his henchmen to attack, Wim was caught off guard, as they did not even reach the point of a peaceful discussion. Left with no option, Wim cast the Thunderbolt spell and immediately incapacitated the bandits. The man in glasses was surprised after witnessing Wim's powerful spell, even though it had a short chant. As the other bandits tried to launch another attack, Wim instructed Hana to take care of those in front of them. Using her scabbard and sword, Hana was able to subdue the two bandits. Running out of options, the man in glasses thought that since Wim was a magician, he was not capable of hand-to-hand combat. As he tried to stab Wim with a knife, the man was surprised when Wim was able to disarm him. Wim lectured the man that even though he was a magician, he should not assume that Wim does not know hand-to-hand combat. Realizing that his plan was collapsing, the man pulled out a smoke bomb and threw it in front of Wim. Even though Wim immediately cast the Wind Blast spell to remove the smoke, the man still escaped successfully, as Wim's detection magic could not find him. When Hana asked if they should chase the man, Wim responded that it was fine, as he was confident that the town's guards would probably catch him. Wondering why the bandits were in the forest, Wim plans to look further into it after arriving home. Upon arriving home, Wim asked James if something had happened while they were away. James mentioned that a man and woman with red hair came to visit Wim. Recognizing that the two were not from the Leoria kingdom, James asked if Wim knew them. Based on James's description, Wim wondered if King Cyrus had sent his lackeys. In the underground prison of the Cyrus Empire, a soldier summoned Cyrus's hitmen, Maria and Kagero, to rise as they had a job assigned to them. When Kagero inquired about their target, the soldier showed them a photo of Wim and informed them that he was currently residing in the country of Leoria. Assuming that he would be the one to take Wim's life, Kagero was pleased that both he and Maria could fully engage with Wim. As they were instructed to perform their best on the task, Maria responded coldly. Wim was relaxing in his bathroom when he accurately anticipated it to be unnecessarily spacious. Exhausted since receiving his first mission in Leoria, he had saved a night of Cyrus during his initial collaboration with Hana. On his way home, Wim encountered a mysterious group of people. Reflecting on James's description of suspicious individuals, he wondered if they were the rumored assassins of the current emperor, whom he had employed to assassinate the former emperor of Cyrus. As he heard the door open, which he assumed was James, Wim was surprised to find Hana requesting to join him in his bath. As one of the duties of a slave, Hana asked Wim if she could wash his back. Feeling completely embarrassed, Wim promptly reminded Hana that they were equals, implying she no longer needed to perform such tasks. Acknowledging Wim's wishes, Hana mistakenly assumed it would be acceptable for them to bathe together. Flustered, Wim informed Hana she could enter once he had finished. Now relaxing in his bed, Wim resolved to remind Hana to cease her slave-like behavior. Suddenly, Arya knocked on Wim's door. Curious about her intentions, Wim inquired about the matter. Observing Wim's fatigue, Arya offered to massage him. Accepting Arya's offer, she immediately began massaging his back. Sensing Wim's tense body, Arya expressed gratitude for his hard work and mentioned a matter that arose during his absence. Wim inquired of Arya whether she referred to the suspicious individuals who had visited them. Upon Arya's confirmation, Wim asked if they had done something to James and her. Arya mentioned that the suspicious individuals had immediately departed upon learning that Wim was currently absent. When Wim shared his suspicion that the visitors had come to kill him, Arya stepped back in surprise, reassuring Arya that they would be safe if the suspicious individuals returned. Wim expressed gratitude for her concern, but informed her that James and she possessed the necessary strength to defend themselves. However, Arya remained concerned about the hitmen who had visited the estate. She worried that the peace established by Wim's master, Sambal, might collapse due to the hitmen. Wim found it unacceptable that despite people desiring peace, unfortunate incidents continued to occur. Meanwhile, in Wim's living room, Hana called for James as she confessed to having done something unforgivable. After recounting what had transpired in the bathroom to James, he reassured Hana that Wim was not angry but rather was merely hiding his shyness. Upon hearing James's explanation, Hana felt relieved, as she would not know what to do if Wim hated her. Agreeing with Hana's assessment that Wim was a very good person, James shared his belief that Wim might be the individual capable of bringing about world peace. However, after learning of Wim's circumstances, having been the disciple who saved the kingdom of Leoria and rescued the first princess, James sensed that Wim felt burdened by a significant responsibility. James shared that while he had witnessed many things, being beside Wim would likely lead to encountering even more interesting experiences, prompting his decision to serve Wim. With both of them holding a similar opinion of Wim, Hana pondered what kind of world Wim would reveal to her. The following day arrived, and Wim and Hana prepared to journey to the royal capital to report to King Eldoret. Arya's words lingered in Wim's mind as he recalled his time in the dungeon, where he had yearned for power, ultimately leading him to the depths of the dungeon. Wondering whether the immortality skill he had acquired was necessary to end the cycle of suffering, Wim quickly dismissed the thought, considering it as mere overthinking. Impressed by the king's demeanor, Wim sensed that the king surpassed his sister in greatness. King Eldoret aspired to achieve peace, a responsibility that Wim found burdensome. King Eldoret congratulates Wim and Hana for completing the subjugation quest in the East Forest, and reminds the two to not forget to claim their reward at the guild. Hearing news that Wim ran into some suspicious people on their way back, King Eldoret asks Wim about the type of people they encountered. Wim told the king that they encountered a group of hoodlums and a magician. King Eldoret guesses that the group Wim encountered could have been a human trafficking organization. In recent years, cases of kidnapping and abductions have increased and have become one of the major problems of their country. Wim was not expecting that such a terrible thing was happening even in Leoria. Since the country cannot even grasp the actual situation, Wim agrees with the king that they may be facing a large organization. Wim shares with the king that he used to pursue a certain human trafficking ring during his time when he was still a court magician. 3 years ago, Wim successfully trapped the traffickers and was about to carry out his revenge for Anna. What Wim did not expect is that one of the traffickers had a bomb wrapped around himself and thus exploded in front of Wim. Because of the trafficker's sacrifice, the rest were able to escape. Since the organization that Wim used to pursue was also large, he feels that the organization that is causing problems in Leoria may be the same organization that he used to pursue. Although there's a possibility that Wim may be wrong, he still wishes to pursue the traffickers in order to stop their activities. With Wim having more knowledge than anyone else, King Eldoret agrees to assign the task to Wim. Seeing how the conversation has ended, Princess Elin joins in and becomes chummy with Wim. Seeing Hana for the first time, Elin did not expect Hana to have a larger chest than her, thus admitting her defeat. Having to spend some time together, the three became close. Pleased with Wim and Hana's stories, Princess Elin wished for the two to soon return and share more of their stories. Sporting a concerned look, King Eldoret apologizes to Elin for not giving her permission to freely go out. Elin understands her father's concerns, which is why she looks forward to the day when Wim will bring peace to the world. King Eldoret has the same thoughts as Elin, putting their faith in Wim to save the world. In the hallway, Wim and Hana did not expect to meet the vice captain, Mark. After Mark politely greeted Hana, Wim looked pleased to see Mark's safe return. When Mark asks Wim if he has some time to spare later, Wim responds that he does and asks for the reason. Mark informs Wim that there's a gentleman who wishes to meet him. Guiding Wim to a room, Mark informs the mysterious person of Wim and Hana's presence. The man introduces himself as the captain of the Third Night Order, Camille. Apologizing right away for wanting to get straight to business, Camille says he wanted to ask for Wim's help in subjugating slimes that have appeared in massive quantities. With Wim's knowledge, he remembers that slimes cannot be killed by physical attacks. Camille further explains that the next mission site has a massive slime outbreak, and that the knights who were sent do not match as they mostly rely on sword-based combat. Although the head mage has already sent out a request for backup to the court magicians, it will unfortunately take time since all magicians are currently unavailable. In using magic, one must know how to control the mana inside their body. One also needs the skill to develop formulas and cast spells. Learning magic takes a lot of effort, which is also the reason why there are only a few magic users. When facing a monster like the slime and the head mage isn't around, it's natural to feel uneasy about the combat strength. Camille felt overjoyed when Wim decided to accept his request. Camille informs Wim that he will reach out as soon as the mission schedule is set. Returning home, Wim informs James that he has accepted a task to accompany the knights and will be leaving home again. Curious, Wim asks James if he knows anything about the human trafficking organization. As the issue is also being investigated by the state, James responds that he does not know much but is willing to personally investigate for Wim. As someone who used to serve in the royal palace, James is confident that he can find out more with his old connections. Somewhere in the kingdom of Leoria Berlan, both Maria and Kagero were causing trouble for the locals, killing and stealing from them. Maria reminds Kagero that they have their target and should not dwell on other people. Kagero does not really care much about their target and mentions that he is just enjoying his hobby. Maria warns Kagero that leaving a body will arouse suspicion and may possibly set Wim always on guard. Kagero scoffs and tells Maria that he is no rookie to commit such a mistake. However, if Wim does get hold of the information that he is being targeted by them, Kagero reminds Maria that they will just return to their cells once their mission is done. Kagero paints an idea in Maria's mind of what he wishes to achieve in life. Thinking of something she always wanted, Maria thought of having a family and becoming a florist. Kagero smirks as he remembers that Hannah came from the same organization as Maria's lady boss. Surprised, Maria asks Kagero how he knew such information. After responding that he heard from their boss, Kagero points out that although Hannah and Maria came from the same place, the two had to commit crimes just to survive, while Hannah enjoys her life to the fullest. Though Maria stated that she did not care, she also understands what Kagero is implying, that life is so unfair to them. After a week, the day of the knight's departure had arrived. Camille greets Wim and Hannah, introducing the two to the knights that they will be accompanying. A man wearing a white coat introduces himself as Aaron, the temporary head magician. While shaking Aaron's hand, Wim could sense Aaron's magic and confirms that Aaron is a strong magician. With the group setting off on their journey, Camille informs Wim that they will head to the base city, Radia. Camille plans to form 5 teams combining mages and knights. The knights will deal with the surrounding beasts, and the mages will focus on attacking the slimes. The mages group contains Camille, Aaron, Wim, and Hannah, and thus leads the charge. Aaron mentions that monsters have not revealed themselves compared to before. With the cause still unknown, Camille also shares that the number of monsters has been rapidly increasing or correlating by region, which makes Camille believe that the mass outbreak of slimes may somehow be related. Wim has some speculations and thinks that the balance of mana in the air may have changed due to human development. After a moment of silence, Camille thinks that if Wim's speculations are true, then humans may have brought the problem upon themselves. Arriving at Radia, Camille gives permission for Wim and Hannah to look around until the preparations for their hunt are ready. Seeing so many food stalls, the two couldn't wait to try out the local foods. Before the two could visit the other stalls, they suddenly witnessed a child being grabbed by a couple of men. The man informs the child that screaming would not help her. However, before they could do any further damage, Wim arrived and blew the men away. After confirming that the child is safe, Wim suggests that they head to the guild, as he believes that it is the safest place for her. Seeing the girl's frightened reaction, Wim thought that the child's response was just normal after what she had been through. Presenting the royal family's card, Wim was able to gain the child's trust and thus bring her to the guild. With the protection registration for the child being processed, Wim hears one of the guild staff asking the others if the orphanage had been contacted. Sensing trouble, Wim approaches the guild staff, asking if there was a problem. The staff reveals that the number of children needing protection keeps increasing. The guild is currently letting the kids stay at the guild since the orphanage is no longer accepting them. Sensing trouble at the orphanage, Wim believes that such a problem needs to be investigated. A few hours later, Camille gives a speech to encourage his men for their hunt. After being told by Wim to leave the slimes to him, Hannah feels useless and apologizes to Wim. Wim reassures Hannah that he has received plenty of help from her and believes that it is now his time to protect her. Observing the two, Camille shares how Wim and Hannah sport a strong sense of trust and wishes for his subordinates to learn from it. With the party finally encountering the monsters, Hannah immediately went forward to handle the beasts. When a slime was about to attack Hannah, she was fortunately saved by Wim. With Wim and Aaron's power combined, the two proved to be unstoppable. Seeing Wim's power up close, Aaron couldn't help but admire him, which led to him getting distracted. Fortunately for Aaron, Wim sensed the monster's attack and blocked it. After thanking Wim, Aaron received advice from Wim that hesitating will cost his life and that they must keep on moving. After wiping out a couple of monsters on their first day, Camille praises Wim for not looking exhausted after using powerful spells. Wim shares that he has only used around 20% of his magic power. Aaron approaches Wim and apologizes for slowing him down. After sharing how he got distracted watching Wim's magic, Aaron was told by Wim that it was fine as long as he didn't get hurt. Since Aaron earned the title of temporary head mage, Wim advises him to hold his head high. Being able to encourage and lecture Aaron, Wim felt pleased. Using search magic to check for monsters nearby, Wim was surprised when he learned that there's a large magical beast nearby, and advised Camille to gather the other units. After using a communication spell, everyone learned that a large threat was just nearby. As everyone prepared themselves, they were shocked when the large monster that was being shown in the magic search was none other than a giant slime. Camille becomes frightened as it was his first time seeing a giant slime. Wim believes that the giant slime is the cause of the slime outbreak as it is absorbing a lot of mana. Adding to the mana absorption, the giant slime is also using the exact mana to multiply itself. Wim believes it's best for them to wait until the other units arrive. Aaron doubts that their backup can even go up against the giant slime. Agreeing with Aaron, Wim thought of an idea but was hesitant in doing it since it is too risky. Wim shares with everyone that he will be defeating the giant slime using an Imperial-class magic. Imperial-class magic is said to be so strong that it can wipe out an entire town. Though using the spell may result in success, what worries Aaron is that Wim may turn into a demon if he uses the spell without preparations. Hearing Aaron, Hannah asks him what he meant by a demon. Aaron further explains that when a person could not control their magic and loses themselves, they will be deemed dangerous to others like a demon or natural disaster. Wim understands everyone's concern, but he does not see any other options for them to defeat the giant slime. Worried, Hannah asks Wim if he will be alright. Wim grabs Hannah's hand, reassuring her that he will not turn into a demon. After performing so many dangerous things before, Wim believes that what he is about to do is no different. Believing Wim's words, Hannah decides to put her faith in her master. Wim advises everyone to move far back, not wanting for them to get caught up in the spell. Wim orders Aaron to cover for him, as he will not be able to use any other magic while chanting the Imperial-class spell. Standing in front of the giant slime, Wim raises his hand and starts chanting the spell. All of a sudden, the slime started getting absorbed. Seeing the danger coming from the spell, Aaron stepped up and deployed the barrier. Seeing Aaron getting pushed back, Hannah encourages him to hold on a little longer. As Wim continued his chant, Aaron's barrier started to show some cracks. As Aaron was about to stop his barrier, they were fortunately saved by their backup, Vice Captain Mark and the court magicians. Aaron informs Wim that he does not need to worry anymore and suggests hitting the monster with everything he has. As Wim's chant reached its ending, he stretched out his hand and pointed it at the giant slime, releasing the spell Inferno. Everyone was amazed at Wim's Imperial spell as it engulfed the giant slime as a whole. The spell that Wim used is a powerful fire spell that can burn everything. Camille praises Wim for doing a great job. Using the magic search to confirm that there are no more monsters to defeat, Camille announces that their hunt is finally over. Aaron was once again impressed with Wim for being able to use an Imperial-class magic without preparations. Not wanting to turn into a demon, Wim shared that he only uses the spell when it's necessary. Arriving at the Radia Inn, Wim praises Hannah for working hard as always. Hannah admires Wim for being able to use powerful magic and give everyone courage. Hannah shared how worried she was when she heard that Wim may turn into a demon and disappear after using the Imperial-class spell. But seeing Wim still with her, Hannah felt really grateful. Wim also felt grateful as he believes that he would not have survived if Hannah wasn't with him. Enjoying their moment, Wim realized that the miserable Hannah he once saw was now brimming with smiles. Returning to his home, Arya welcomes Wim and Hannah and informs him that they are being summoned by the king, and also wishes to see Hannah. Meeting the king, Wim mentions how their meeting place is not the usual room. King Eldoret informs Wim that the reason for their summons is so that he can give something to Hannah. Shocked, Hannah wonders what the king plans to give while hiding behind Wim. Remembering the last conversation he had with the king, Wim can only say that the king may be giving Hannah something amazing. After being instructed to step forward, the king receives a document and announces that Hannah is now a B-ranked adventurer. Hannah is very puzzled as she remembers that slaves could never become adventurers. King Eldoret responds that in his kingdom they value skill above all. With everyone having the equal right to seize their opportunity, King Eldoret informs Hannah that he is looking forward to seeing her future success. Hannah gasps as she thanks the king for giving such a reward. King Eldoret also mentions that thanks to Hannah, the nobles who were once against improving the status of slaves now support the idea. Seeing that it was his turn to speak, Wim informs the king of the problem he recently encountered at the Radia Guild, where the number of kids needing protection keeps increasing. However, the orphanage is not accepting all of the children. The king thinks it doesn't make sense as he is certain that the orphanages are funded by the state and should not have a problem housing more children. Wim agrees with the king and believes that someone may be embezzling the funds. He suggests that the matter be investigated. King Eldoret orders his men to report the issue to the royal advisor and have an investigation carried out at once. Realizing that there are still areas being overlooked, King Eldoret expresses his gratitude to Wim for reporting the problem directly to him. Wim states that he only kept his promise, as he swore on the royal crest to protect the child. If Wim's theory is indeed true, he wishes for the culprit to be dealt with properly. King Eldoret swears on his family crest that he will do everything in his power to resolve the issue. After their meeting with the king, Wim informs Hannah that he will be doing some research and will head back first. Hannah, who wanted to walk around the city a bit before returning, bids farewell to Wim. After the two split up, Hannah gleefully smiles while staring at her new B-rank card. Remembering Wim's words, Hannah was finally starting to believe that the slavery system would soon be abolished. Unbeknownst to her, Maria was nearby, angrily watching her. Kagero calls out to Maria asking about Hannah. After witnessing Kagero murder and steal from someone, Maria shares that Hannah has been allowed to become an adventurer. She points out that, as a beast girl, Hannah just happened to be bought by the king's favorite. Though they are the same in origin, the two are not being treated equally, which angers Maria. Kagero asks Maria if she wants to betray the Empire and pursue a life in Leoria like their target. Though the idea tempts her, Maria doesn't want to live a life where the Empire is constantly chasing after her. Seeing her point, Kagero comments that the Empire isn't so bad. Confused, Maria reminds him that the Empire is a place where slaves are treated like tools. Kagero then reveals that the reward for killing Wim is freedom from slavery. Eager for freedom, Maria suggests they kill Wim right away. Kagero calms her down, explaining that they should carry out their plan when their target is at their happiest. He believes it would be more satisfying to make Hannah fall into despair after they take Wim's life. Though Kagero's methods are twisted, Maria has no objections as she detests Hannah's happy face and wants to destroy it completely. Back at his home, Wim was in his study, researching ways to rid himself of his immortality skill. However, his efforts still bore no fruit. Seeing that he was studying something, Arya quietly placed the tea she had brought on the table. With Wim having just returned from a trip, Arya suggested that he take a break first. Wim replied that he was already resting as it is. He then asked Arya if there was a large library that held ancient or rare books. Arya recommended the library in the royal palace, saying she had heard it holds over 10,000 books. Hearing it was in the royal palace, Wim wondered if outsiders were allowed to use it. Though the library is usually off limits, Arya was certain Wim would be allowed access and even offered to schedule a visit for him. With so many books stored there, Wim hoped to find something useful. However, his biggest challenge was that he didn't fully understand the nature of his immortality skill. Reading all the books that Wim could find at the Royal Palace Library, Wim sighs as he felt disappointed for not finding any information about immortality. Lord Dion of Baron suddenly showed up, asking Wim if he was doing some research. When Wim mentioned that he's doing some research about curses, Lord Dion was surprised and shared that he is an expert in the field of curses. Extending his help, Lord Dion suggests to Wim that he ask freely about curses, as he will answer to the best of his knowledge. When Wim asked Lord Dion if he had heard about a curse called immortality, the Lord responded that he had heard of ancient documents, but sadly, due to aging and deterioration, the documents no longer exist. Lord Dion shared with Wim a story that had happened a few hundred years ago, where a high-ranking sorcerer sought immortality and started conducting his own research. In the end, the sorcerers who knew of the study managed to extend their lifespan by about 100 years. However, they never truly achieved immortality. Since then, there's been no record of anything continuing the immortality research in the country. Listening to Lord Dion, Wim thought that the curse he received and the immortality study are two separate things. Since no one is doing research about the immortality curse, Wim thought that looking for more information about it would be pointless. Lord Dion suddenly remembered something and asked Wim if he could do a request for him. Walking in the hall, Wim thought of the request that the Lord mentioned, which was to investigate a labyrinth. With labyrinths being formed naturally by mana, Wim received information from the Lord that a new labyrinth had been discovered in the eastern forest of Baron. With labyrinths also having a ranked system depending on its difficulty, Wim believes that the labyrinth may be a high rank for him to be asked to investigate it. Another acquaintance of Wim suddenly showed up and mentioned that she was quite eager to meet Wim once again. Surprised to see Misa, Wim asks why a Cyrus Imperial Guard is at Leoria. Misa explained that she had quit being an Imperial Guard and came to Leoria to serve Wim. Learning of Wim's achievements at Cyrus, Misa believes that Wim is someone who can stand up and fight without hesitation to protect others. Misa wanted to serve someone she truly respected and has decided that the person would be Wim. After Misa apologized for dumping her wishes on Wim, Wim tells Misa that there are other people who are more suitable than him. Misa reminds Wim that she had already promised to only swing her sword for him. Seeing Misa's resolve, Wim accepts her wholeheartedly and hopes that they fight together. Returning home, Hannah welcomes Wim back but is surprised to see Misa with him. Wim explains to Hannah that Misa will be fighting alongside them moving forward. After thanking Hannah for helping her back in the Eastern Forest, Misa proceeds to interact more with Hannah, creating a friendly connection. Wim asks Misa if she has an adventurer's license, pointing out that their job is more similar to adventurers than to knights. Misa reveals her adventurer card and explains to Wim that she first became an adventurer before becoming a knight. Now that Wim confirms that all of his members are licensed adventurers, he shared with everyone the request that Lord Dion of Baron asked of him. Investigating a newly discovered dungeon, Wim believes that the labyrinth may be an S rank, which also means that the danger is very high and their safety may not be guaranteed. Wim informs the two that they can freely refuse and asks if they are still willing to go with him. Looking at each other, the two responded that they will go wherever Wim goes. Wim smiles as he mentions that they will now set off to the labyrinth. The next day, Wim and the others arrived at the eastern forest of Baron. Standing in front of the labyrinth entrance, Wim was then welcomed by a guard, informing Wim that they'd been waiting for him. After Wim asked the guard the estimated rank of the labyrinth, the guard responded that it is an S rank based on the mana levels. Wim, who already expected the rank to be high, informs his companions that they should give their all in the quest. Inside the labyrinth, Wim and the others immediately went to work and hunted down the monsters that got in their way. Although the estimated rank of the labyrinth is S rank, Misa expressed her opinion that the labyrinth didn't feel like an S rank. Wim suggests that they reserve their judgment after seeing the deepest part of the labyrinth. Wim shared that the labyrinth he was trapped in before only had a strong guardian at the deepest part. Instead of getting scared, Wim's warning had the opposite effect as the girls started to admire him more for being able to survive inside a dangerous labyrinth. Reaching the deepest part of the labyrinth, Wim informs the two to stay sharp, as the labyrinth's guardian would reveal itself once they step inside the chamber. Wim notices something forming in front of them and was surprised to see a wyvern. Facing a wyvern, Wim instructs Misa and Hannah to take charge. Wim orders the two to aim for the wyvern's wings. After the wyvern dodged Wim's wind cutter, he was not at all surprised, as he expected an S-ranked guardian to evade his attack. Wim was not that disappointed, as Hannah had already closed the gap and successfully slashed the wyvern's arm and wing off. Appearing behind the wyvern, Misa took advantage of the opportunity and slashed off the other wing. With the wyvern now wingless, Misa and Hannah decided to leave the rest to Wim. After casting the spell, Wim released Luminous Spear and wiped the wyvern out of existence. After successfully subjugating the wyvern, Wim praises his subordinates for doing a good job. Both Misa and Hannah expressed their amazement upon seeing another incredible spell from Wim. Feeling embarrassed, Wim suggests that they leave and give their reports back. Meeting up with the guard, Wim reports that they've cleared all the way to the deepest part of the labyrinth. The guard was not that surprised and was even amazed that Wim was able to clear the labyrinth within 3 hours. When the guard asked how difficult the labyrinth was, Wim explained that the labyrinth could only be explored by an A-ranked adventurer or stronger. The guard then left to report the situation to Lord Dion. Wim was surprised when Camille suddenly showed up. After not meeting for a long time, Camille apologizes to Wim for bringing a matter right after finishing the labyrinth investigation. Camille informs Wim that he has been entrusted with an important request from the king. Camille informs Wim that their country is planning to form an alliance with the neighboring Griffiton Empire, and the king wishes for Wim and his companions to go as representatives. As the symbol of the alliance, Wim is asked to use portal magic to connect the two nations. After a few days, Wim and the others headed for the Griffiton Empire. With the journey likely to take 2 weeks, the group believes that they will stay in inns at various towns along the way. Hannah could not hide her excitement as it was her first time crossing a border. Wim also feels the same way, eager to see the Empire. However, Wim still could not hide his nervousness after being tasked with linking the two nations using portal magic. Portal magic is a magic that links specific locations, allowing for instant travel between two locations. To connect spaces requires an enormous amount of magic power and skill. The magician also must have physically been to the locations at least once. Being able to travel through the portal would be a huge advantage, as one can visit the place in an instant, and also avoid being attacked by bandits. Though sporting a smile, Wim expresses the weight he is feeling after being entrusted with such an important job. Misa mentions that they are getting closer to the border after seeing the sign ahead of them. With the group stopping at a nearby town called Mail, Camille informs Wim that they can do whatever they want until morning. The town of Mail is near the border between the Griffiton Empire. After Camille left the three to their own enjoyment, Wim suddenly sensed that someone was watching him. Seeing Wim looking distressed, Hannah asks him if something was wrong. Not seeing anyone that is a potential threat, Wim tells Hannah it was nothing. From a distance, both Maria and Kagero, who were wearing a disguise, were observing Wim and the others. With their presence now known, Kagero confirms that Wim is indeed strong. Starting their mission, Kagero tells Maria that he is putting his faith in her. As the two girls were trying to get comfortable in their room, Hannah still felt worried and asked Misa for advice on a way to repay Wim. Seeing Wim looking exhausted from the new responsibility he has been handling, Hannah wanted to do something to help Wim relax. Hannah shared that when she helped Wim clean his back, Wim only got upset. Misa suggests to Hannah that she give Wim some flowers, as the scent and the beautiful look can make anyone relax. Acknowledging Misa's point, Hannah thanked Misa and immediately went out to look for flowers. Misa wanted to go with Hannah, but it was too late as Hannah was already out of the room. In his room, Wim was still thinking about the gaze he sensed from earlier, which gave him a bad feeling. The Empire kept quiet when Wim was at Leoria, but now that he has left, he wonders if the Empire's assassin has come for him. Using his magic search, he sees that there are no reactions at all. With the thought that the Empire may have sent someone to kill him, Wim thought to himself that letting his guard down is not an option. Worried, Wim wonders where the assassins are hiding.